Joining me now are two congressmen who served in Afghanistan, Representative Mark Green of Tennessee and Representative Jim Banks of Indiana. Congressman Green, your reaction to Lieutenant Colonel Scheller's imprisonment, while there's zero accountability for the withdrawal, for the killing of civilians and children, none whatsoever.
Thanks, Laura, for bringing this issue to the front, and thank you for the interview you did last night. It was spectacular. What's happened to this Marine is unconscionable. To think that he can be in jail just for asking for accountability is crazy. And you think about what Secretary Austin has done. I mean, he refuses to follow the law, which demands there be oversight of the military academies, but they suspended those boards that were written into law by Congress, basically blowing off a co-equal branch of government. They basically gave material aid to a terrorist organization, $85 billion. They admitted today that the Taliban's a bunch of terrorists, and here they have given $85 billion to a terrorist organization. That's blatantly against the laws of the United States. And they throw this guy in jail for basically speaking out. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Unless they want to intimidate or send a message across the ranks, which,
of course,
you know, they've also basically accused of being filled with a bunch of racists after the insurrection. Well, Congressman Banks, I want to play a revealing exchange between Congressman Mike Gallagher and General McKenzie today. Watch.
Do you know which Taliban forces were actually providing security in front of the airport?
Yes, we do.
Was it Badri 313?
They were part of it. There were other elements as well. It was a hodgepodge of units.
But Badri 313 was part
among others.
Among others. A group that specializes in suicide bombing attacks.
Congressman Banks, do you believe that the Taliban could have been behind this attack that killed our service members? And they just don't want to admit it, since now we know they gave the Taliban free reign over the Kabul airport and the security perimeter.
Yeah, Laura, I can believe it, because this is a part of a pattern of lies by the Biden administration and his senior team of military leaders who lied about us every step of the way. The fact that they would have relied on a terrorist group who specialize in suicide bombing attacks to protect the perimeter of the airport that we were relying on to get Americans and our allies to the airport to get on airplanes is just another concession of the incompetence of this administration. They should be held accountable for it. We asked tough questions. Mike Gallagher asked those questions. A lot of tough questions today about the idiocy of these military leaders that allowed these activities to happen. We now know, because of the testimony yesterday before the Senate and today before the House, that Joe Biden lied to the American people about what his military advisors advised him to do in leaving troops in Afghanistan to prevent this catastrophe. But this is another example of a lie by this administration as well. They can't get away with it. We can't let them get away with it.
Well, one thing, and I don't understand this as a civilian, but both of you serve, so maybe Congressman Green, you can inform us on this. So they all seem to say, I believe, that they thought we should have left more troops in, at least to help with the evacuation, correct? They all thought that.
That's right, yep.
So given the fact that they all thought that, and they said they were gaming out a possible collapse of Kabul. They did mention that to Biden. None of them decided, you know, if this is so serious that I got to resign, I can't be part of this. They all let it go forward, did they not? I mean, was there? I mean, they could have been kind of whistleblowers on this, correct?
Oh, absolutely. They could have gone in and said, look, 650, which was a number, by the way, that Joe Biden pulled out of the thin air. He gave them as the mandate. You can only have 650. I mean, they basically could have said, that's not enough. We're unwilling to enforce this, and they could have walked away. I think they were really banking on, and this comes into that flawed intelligence issue, they were banking on the Afghan army to stay there. And that's another failure of this administration. They own the intelligence apparatus of this country. And yes, maybe it failed. We need to dig into that. But they keep saying it did. And well, if it did, that's their failure. They own that.
Well, they also said the Afghan military was being trained well, and they kept reporting all the great advances from the Afghan military. We spent $90 billion training them. And what did we get? I mean, there's been no accountability for all the years of failures in Afghanistan at the hands of the leadership, not the troops. Now, Congressman Banks, I want to play a response Milley gave to one of your questions about his talking to Bob Woodward. Watch.
I believe that part of my job is to communicate to the media what we do as a government, what we do as a military, to explain to the people. And so I do interviews regularly. I've done my best to remain personally apolitical and to try to keep the military out of actual domestic politics. I'm trying to stay apolitical, and I believe I am.
Well, Congressman Banks, Woodward isn't writing a book to, like, help the commander-in-chief. He's writing a book to expose, in his view, the commander-in-chief. So did you buy that response?
Not at all. And this is just one book. I mean, there are several more books coming out soon where General Milley is a key character bashing the former commander-in-chief who gave him his job. I've actually, Laura, don't hold it against me, but I've read Peril, the Bob Woodward book. And all through the book, Milley is the key character, and the book recounts how he undermined President Trump, the President of the United States of America, not just the call with the Chinese counterpart, but in other ways.
Yeah, how many hours? I mean, you have a major withdrawal issue going on in Afghanistan. You have all these threats all over the world. And he has time, hours upon hours, to spend gabbing with journalists, to try to burnish his own reputation for posterity's sake. That's what it was about. That's always what it's about in Washington. I've lived here long enough. That's why they talk to these journalists.
He spilled his guts to Bob Woodward. I mean, it's all recounted in the book for everyone to hear. He tells Speaker Pelosi, who's bashing President Trump because of calling President Trump crazy, mental decline, and he says, Speaker Pelosi, I agree with everything that you're saying. And then he tries to tell the Armed Services Committee that he's apolitical. He's the most political general that we've ever had in American history. I mean, prove me wrong. There's no general in American history who's been as political as this guy. That's why he's incapable and not trusted to continue to fulfill the important position that he fulfills.
Can you imagine Eisenhower putting up with any of these people? I mean, it'd be gone. All right, gentlemen, thank you. Great to see you tonight.